Yes, okay. All right, so you should be able to tell that we are recording. There should be like a little dot on your screen saying that we're recording. All right, so first things first, I want to introduce Sci-Tech Discovery Center. We are a hands-on kids museum that focuses on science, technology, engineering, and math. Our exhibits are very interactive. We really focus on elementary school kids. We also offer programming that's a little bit more defined if some groups want to get a little bit more hands-on with particular topics. While some groups can't come and visit us because they're far away or busing or whatever, we also offer outreaches year-round. And we can bring our equipment to your site thanks to our mobile maker vans and run an assortment of supplements and wow shows. We also have camps during the summer and springtime that are all STEM-based. And you can also have your birthday party at Sci-Tech on Fridays, Saturdays, or Sundays. So we do a lot at Sci-Tech during this time. However, we are unable to be open to the public, so we still thought it would be really important for kids and adults to stay curious and continue to learn. So we are deciding to celebrate Citizen Science Month during the month of April. Citizen science can also be known as community science, amateur science, crowdsourcing science, public participation, all those sorts of things. It's a way that we can face global challenges that we all might want to find local ways to make a difference in protecting endangered species, safeguarding water sources, preventing diseases, and accelerating medical research. Science needs more eyes and ears and perspectives. So citizen science is a collaboration between scientists and those of us who are just really curious or concerned and motivated to make a difference. So you don't have to be a professional. You can just be any person at home that's really curious. So anybody can participate. Participants use the same protocols, so data can be combined and be high quality. Data can help real scientists come to real conclusions, and a wide community of scientists and volunteers work together to share data that the public as well as scientists have access to. People just like you are collecting data by taking pictures of clouds with their phones or streams, documenting changes in nature using smartphones, sensors to help scientists monitor water and air quality, or just playing games to help advance health and medical research. Citizen science projects can involve one person or multiples and millions collaborating towards a common goal. Typically, public involvement is in data collection, analysis, or reporting. Sci-Tech wanted to be a little bit more involved in these projects. We know that we're not alone in our love for science, so that we wanted to look for some really fun projects kids can do with their parents and won't require a lot of prior knowledge. I think that's really important. Science can be kind of intimidating for a lot of people, including myself. I only really studied one subject of science, so other forms of science can be intimidating to me, but you don't really have to have a lot of prior knowledge. They're really good about explaining how to help with every project. We wanted to also make sure that we chose things that you can do while staying home and being safe. The amazing thing about citizen science is you don't need to go outside and collect a bunch of data. You can just be as helpful looking at cute animal pictures from the safety of your own home, which I don't know about you, but I love cute animal pictures. So that's actually how I chose the project that we're going to focus on today. We learned about SciStarter.org. It's an online community dedicated to improving the citizen science experiments for project managers and participants. Over 3,000 projects and events are searchable by location and by scientific topic, by age level. You don't actually have to make an account on SciStarter.org. You can join any of the projects and participate that way without having to put any sort of personal information in or whatever. The benefits to make an account is it connects you to thousands of projects. When you create an account, you can track your contributions to science on your dashboard. You can add your interests to locations to your profile to get custom projects, and you can also connect to thousands of other citizen scientists in your community, answer questions. Sci-Starter.org isn't the only website that connects you to citizen science projects, but this website is one that I found to be super easy to use and navigate. Like I said, I am not a tech person, so the more help I get with this, I think the better. So that brings me to the project that I found. The way that you get to this is, I'm actually going to change my screen now and kind of walk you guys through it, is you go to scistarter.org and you can go to the project finder up here on the top. And the moment I decided to start looking for these projects, I found it really important to eliminate some other projects. I did hear recently that SciStarter has decided to take a lot of other projects off their dashboard that encourage people to get into groups or to be in group settings. So they're really only advertising projects right now that you should be doing kind of solo or with your family or even online, which I think is really important and cool that they're doing that right now. So the first drop down that I use is exclusively online. And then of course, the minute I saw animals, I was like, we're doing an animal project. And then of course, to be done online again. And then our age group, I just picked elementary school. The really cool thing about most of these projects is you can do them at any age, but I didn't want to pick something too difficult. One, for myself, because technology is hard, but also because we really do focus on kind of the littler kids at Sci-Tech. So then you go to find your projects. And then one of the first ones that pops up is a Cedar Creek Eyes on the Wild. As you can see, there are a lot of other choices with just those small criteria. It says 1 of 9, but if you change your criteria to include older groups, most of these projects are these identifying animals in the images. So if you go to their website, it's now going to give you some criteria on what this project's about, who's hosting it, where you can do it, which is online, some of your tasks involved, how much time is required for the project, as little as 5 minutes, or you could spend more time doing this. So then you'll visit their website. It's gonna ask you so I'm already signed in to my account, but if you did not have a SciStarter account, it would ask you to create an account, or you can just continue right to the Cedar Creek Eyes on the Wild. So like I said, you don't have to create an account with SciStarter for this one. So this is what their homepage looks like. I am gonna go back to our presentation because I do wanna tell you a little bit about this project. All right, so Cedar Creek is an ecosystem science reserve in Minnesota, so kind of far away from Texas, which is where we currently are. This reserve is filled with diverse array of plants and animals. They've done previous studies where they focused mostly on the plants, but right now they're focusing a lot more of their time right now on the animals. To better understand how they use how these animals affect these ecosystems, researchers have deployed a vast network of trail cameras across the Cedar Creek property. Over 100 cameras have been set up, capturing high resolution data on the movement and activity patterns of over a dozen species, including wolves, foxes, coyotes, deer, turkey, and even more fun animals. So your assistance helps scientists to understand what's happening in the landscape, and the data will continue with the study of how predators structure ecological communities and ecosystems. So when I heard that, it really reminded me of that project they did in Yellowstone. And I know it's a really old kind of example, but it was the study of what happened when they took an apex predator or a keystone species out of such a vast area, and how that really directly affected other animal species, but then also plant species, waterways, all sorts of things. So since my background is biology and nature, I found this study to be really interesting. So that's how they're going to use our project and our data that we collect. later on. So if we just get started, I'll go back to this website. So the way you're going to start your project is you're going to scroll down and it's going to give you a bunch of information about the project, or you can just get started. So we're going to click on this link. And like I said, there are a lot of projects that have to do with you looking at pictures and answering questions. The reason I liked this one the best is actually because the tutorial is really in depth. It gives you a lot of pictures. It breaks everything down for you, which, like I said before, I'm not a tech person, and I didn't want to be doing things wrong. They make it very clear that you're not the only person that looks at these photos. Multiple other people will look at the exact same photo, and as long as all of you have decided on the exact same answer, that's when they'll use that image. But if there are conflicting errors in the picture, I think then that picture is sent to one of the actual scientists on the project, and then they from there will decide what's actually in the photo. But there are like a million pictures that have been taken by these trail cams, so that 6 people that are actually doing this project don't have time to look at these photos. They're doing other parts of their research. So that's why they have decided to make this a citizen science project. So if you go through the tutorial, it does step by step. It gives you instructions. It tells you how to use all of the tabs and things like that. But we're just gonna get the tutorial and I'm gonna walk you through it right here. So this is the first picture that showed up. It looks like the back end of a deer. So the first thing you're gonna do is, oh, I don't know what type of animal this is, which is totally fine if you don't know what a deer looks like. Maybe you're not from an area where there are deer. So there is this top area right here that actually can tell you, okay, well, I noticed that there's a tail. What does the tail look like? Well, it kind of looks bushy and short. So you can go over here and now it'll give you this large assortment of answers, or you can come over here to this like tab and it'll say, what does it kind of remind you of? Does it remind you of a bird? No. A mouse? No. A weasel? No. A large herbivore? Well, it's chewing on some sticks right now and it's pretty big. So I'm gonna pick large herbivore. And then the only 2 options are bison or deer. So if you click on one, that doesn't mean that that's your answer. It's just now just saying, this is what a bison looks like. Okay, well, it doesn't look like a bison. So now we're going to go over here and it says often confused with deer. Okay, because this is not a black bear. That would be ridiculous. So deer, okay, so I want to, I think that's what it is. Pick on the deer. So now you're gonna say, I have to answer some questions. So it does a really good job at showing you what different types of deer pictures you might see. And I think it's really important because not a lot of people know that deer are sexual dimorphic, meaning the males and the females look different from each other. So they actually show a male picture and a female picture. Wow, that's not a female picture. A female picture and then a baby picture. That way you can tell when you're answering these questions. One of the questions is there young around? And if it doesn't have spots, it's not a baby. I don't care how adorable it is. It's not a puppy, even if it's older. Okay, so how many of this particular deer do you see in the picture? So I only see 1 right now, but if you go over here and you hit this like play button, so all of the webcams take 3 photos consecutively, boom, boom, boom. So this will actually show you sometimes another animal will pop up in the corner right here just for a split second. So it's important to look at all 3 pictures. I always play the playback button because from here I can look at all of the different areas in the woods and see like, oh, maybe there's a bird that twitches for just a second that I normally wouldn't have seen with just a still photo. So by playing the 3 photos consecutively back and back, you can see if there's any animals hiding in the woods or something. So there's only 1 right here. What does this animal appear to be doing? So that is something I'm going to ask you guys to answer in the chat. Your 4 options are lying down, standing, moving, eating, or interacting. And now I realize that there are 5 options and now I sound silly. So you can actually, I think you can pick more than 1 as an option. Yeah. So cast your ideas, and I'll read them out loud just in case nobody else can see this. So do you think they're lying down? Do you think they're standing, moving, eating, or interacting? So interacting, I would say there should probably be more than one animal, unless it's like licking the camera or something, then maybe it's interacting with the camera. Okay, so the majority say eating and standing. All right, so that's what I'm gonna pick, eating and standing. And like I said, if you just said eating, it's not a big deal. Other people are gonna look at this, as long as you're not saying that they're eating and running or something, because that's clearly not happening. All right, are there any young present? No. Do you see any antlers? Okay, so this part I've found with the deer, especially because most of the pictures are in the winter, to be a little bit more difficult, because with lighting and stuff and so many twigs around, it's kind of like, is that an antler or is that a twig? So I always play the playback a couple of times just to make sure that the little nubbin I see on its head isn't an antler or something. So this one is very clearly, let's see, I have a chat. No antlers. Thanks, Miss Sloan. Okay, so no antlers. So do you see any antlers? No. One of the answers is also head not visible. So that's important too. If you just see like the back end of the deer, like don't guess. I don't think you can guess by looking at the back end of the deer if it's a boy, but maybe. Okay, so I'm gonna say identify. So then it brings you back to this point. So it makes it kind of look like you're back to the beginning. This is important because sometimes you see different species in the picture. So if you see like a bird, then you would go back to the beginning and you would say, okay, now you have to go and answer all those questions for birds. But if it's all deer, you can answer all the questions for deer all at once, and then you say done. And then it gives you another picture, which is another deer. But earlier I went and I looked at these a couple of times to find some cool pictures, because I have found 90% deer every time I do this project. But I have found a picture with turkeys in it. Oh, wait, don't tell. Pretend I didn't say that, because I want to see if you guys can guess what it is. So pretend I didn't know what a bird was. Okay. So I would go to, what does the tail look like? Oh no, that's not a good one. What does it look like? A bird. Okay, so these are the answers. Other bird, turkey, sandhill crane, pheasant, owl, or birds of prey. Birds of prey are normally birds that eat other things, or that have talons, so claws. So if you guys go down to the chat, we can check. Sometimes these guys, because they look like game birds, can be confused to be pheasants, especially if it's a long away picture. So we'll actually look over here and say if it's a pheasant. So the pheasant, oh, these are all awful pictures of pheasants. This shows that there's a band around this pheasant's head and the tail is like super long. So you can look at these pictures by zooming in. There's no band around their neck, so I don't think it's a pheasant, but can sometimes, okay, what did you guys say? Turkey or pheasant? Thanks, Miss Sloan. Miss Lauren, you need to participate more. Okay, so turkey is what we're gonna pick. Oh wait, I got another chat. Why does this keep going down? Okay, so this shows me all the different types of pictures you might see with turkey. So like deer, turkey are sexually dimorphic, meaning that they look different if they're a male or a female, but also they look really different if they're juvenile or adult. So sometimes the male juveniles will look a lot like females, so you just gotta guess sometimes. So this is our first picture. This is a male turkey. This looks like a group of females. And then another male. Also, baby turkeys are like the cutest things ever. What does juvenile mean? That is a great question. Juvenile is a big word for just young. So when birds are young or other animals are young, they can be considered juvenile. Like how we saw that baby deer. Knowing that it's a juvenile, it should look like it has spots all over it. Once it gets rid of those spots, it's not considered a juvenile anymore. It would be a young adult or just an adult. All right, so this is a turkey. So we're going to go out of our picture and then we're gonna answer some questions. All right, so I see 2, but first I'm gonna play back. Oh my gosh, I think I see more than 2. Oh my gosh, I see so many. Okay, how many do you guys see? I got really excited because this is the first time I saw a turkey. Why isn't my little, oh.
Can you play it again?
Oh yeah, sorry. So sometimes it just like, it's only plays for a little bit. Okay. So I can pause it at particular pictures if you want. Maybe sometimes playing it back to back is harder. So this is the first picture.
That's hard. I don't know if I would consider,
Second picture.
There's a little tail end on the left, but then there's a little head coming from the right. So is that 3, or is it like one moves and then a 4th one comes in?
I think I see 4.
So one moves out of screen and then a 4th one moves in the screen.
Yes, and I think if you look close enough, come on, zoom. That one looks angry. This guy's little tail is still in the picture. Little tiny tip of it.
Oh, does everyone else agree? Put in the chat whether you think we've got 3 or 4.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with 4. They're doing very interesting things. But remember, it's all the same type of animal, so we're just gonna kind of group them all together for their behavior. So I see 4. What do you think they are doing? So I'll play it back again. So this accounts for the whole group. So if like one individual is doing one thing, we'll put that down while the other individuals are doing something else. Moving, Miss Sloan says moving. What does Miss Lauren think? Standing, moving, and interacting. Okay, so I would definitely say interacting. From what I know about turkeys, this one's definitely trying to push the other turkey away from the area that he's in. So that it might be a juvenile male trying to guard a female that he found nearby from other juvenile males, or it might just be a turkey that doesn't want to share its bugs it's found or something like that. So I'm gonna definitely say standing, moving, and interacting. I didn't really see any eating. They're too concerned that this middle guy is gonna peck on them or something. So nobody's eating right now. So are there young present? I would say since they look like turkey, I would say no. The funny thing about birds is they look kind of like aliens when they're babies. And then if they actually look like a real species, then they're considered adults. It's very weird. Birds are kind of special creatures. All right, so identify. So this one obviously didn't ask if there were antlers or something crazy like that. So then we're gonna say done. All right, of course, another deer, but I got another picture that I found. You guys are gonna be so excited. Look, I know. It's so cute. Okay, so pretend like we don't know what this is. So we're gonna say that maybe we can play with the pattern drop down because I haven't done that yet. So maybe it has bands. All right, that still has a lot. So it's not a fox, it's not a skunk, it's not a weasel, it's a raccoon. So you can see the different pictures, like I said. Ooh, that's a really bad picture. But you can zoom in. Ooh, look, you can see his little tail, how adorable. So if you don't have a really good picture on them, like they're farther away or it's nighttime or whatever, remember that you can zoom in, that's really important. But since we got surprised about the turkey, let's go ahead and play this frame just in case there's multiple raccoons, or just in case you see something over here like a little mouse or a bird fly through or something like that. Make sure you're always looking at all the pictures just in case. All right, so I only see one little fella. So I'm gonna say 1. What does it look like this raccoon is doing? I will now take your ideas in the chat below. if I can find the chat. My chat doesn't pop up as easily as your guys's does. Moving, okay, moving, yeah, I'd probably say moving too. He does not appear to be eating. Okay, so I'm gonna pick moving. Well, are there young present? So I don't know if this one shows any extra pictures of what the young look like. The young just like look like tinier versions, but I will say if you see young, you'll probably see a mother with them or multiple young. You'll never see a young, like a juvenile or a young all by itself. And if it is by itself, chances are it's not young enough to consider it young. It's probably just a young adult. It's already on its own. So I would say no young identified. All right, done. All right, and again, more deer. So I got really excited when I saw other animals, so I saved them for you guys. So, all right, so let's go back to our presentation. We can end this in a minute, maybe take some questions, but let me get back to the presentation. So we learned that, we learned that, we learned that. That was the turkey one. These are just some pictures that I found while doing this presentation. One of them's like a really fluffy, adorable deer that I just thought was like the best picture ever. One of them's a coyote, and then one of them's a black bear. So I thought that was really cool. Such a diverse amount of animals living in the same area. And then I thought this quote was really cool. This was the quote that was on their website from one of their project managers, saying that Eyes on the Wild is a great project for those in quarantine, isolating, recovering, or just staying at home to prevent transmission of the coronavirus. So even though we're in this situation, we're not alone, everybody's doing it, so we might as well do something fun and educational in the process. I'm gonna skip this next slide. It just shows a little bit about the stats behind this project. This particular site does a really good job on showing you statistics behind the project. So if you end up doing this project later or anything else on Zooniverse, they like to put a lot of stats and other information. This slide's a little bit more important. How do you continue this at home in your own backyards? So just because this is all online and these are still pictures doesn't mean that you can't interact with wildlife in your own backyards. I think it's really important for us to be able to still get outside or get a little bit of nature right now while we're sheltering in place. So even if you don't have any bird feeders, you can go to the grocery store next time you're there and you just go into the pet area. You can grab a random bag of bird seed. It doesn't have to be something super expensive. Put out a couple of different plates on your front yard or your backyard and just watch what birds come in. You can use some binoculars if you're cool like I am and have binoculars, or Miss Sloan, she's gonna go grab her 12 different binoculars. She's a special kind of crazy. Keep journals, write down what animals you see, what the birds look like. If you're cool like me and have a bunch of different types of bird books, you can try and figure out what type of birds you found. Miss Sloan's gonna show you her giant set of binoculars that she spies on like the moon with. It's crazy. Oh my goodness, she is extra. But you could be like Miss Sloan and keep a journal or a bird book and write down every time you see a different bird in your backyard. And I think this is really cool because we are in such an area where a lot of different birds migrate through. And it would be really cool to just say, like, especially during spring when birds are moving around, what sorts of birds you saw. So Miss Sloan texts me every time she finds a new bird in her backyard, and it's pretty fun. But birds aren't the only things living back there. We get raccoons, skunks, squirrels, bobcat, coyote, all sorts of things. So definitely get in touch with nature. Never feed them anything that you're not supposed to, though. Don't be those people. Don't put out bread. Okay, so that brings us to the questions slide. I think I answered any questions that were in the chat section. But this is where
I did have some questions. I put them in the slide, but they're not populating on your screen.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna refresh it and see if that helps. Remember, friends, technology. All right, so I'm gonna go back down here. Oh, yes, lots of questions. Okay, so I'm gonna go here and then I'm gonna go back to present. All right, how do we find out what scientists did with our answers? So most of the projects have a site with lots of information, how to contact the owners of that project. You can contact SciStarter because they're the ones kind of facilitating the middleman process in that. But most of those projects do have a description on why they're having you do a particular subset of interactions. Some of them might be little games that don't seem like they're helpful, but they have a lot of information being drawn out of there. So I would definitely, if you're really, really interested and none of your answers are being, or none of your questions are being answered, I would contact some people in that. And scientists are always happy to answer questions about that too, especially if they're getting people interested in what they're doing. Do these projects sometimes end and disappear from the site? So that's a good question. Part of the Eyes in the Wild, there was actually a two-part for it. The first part was looking at pictures and deciding whether or not there was actually an animal in it, or if it was just plants or bugs. They're not trying to process bugs right now. So it was sometimes kind of boring because you were just looking at blades of grass the whole time. But they had to get through those like billion pictures and siphon out all the ones that had animals in them. And then that's where you get that diversity detective one. That's where you can get a picture every time that has an animal in it and not just blades of grass. So that one actually just ended over the weekend. When I started this project, it was only 77% finished, and that was last week. So with SciStarter and with Citizen Science Month, a lot more people have been on these sites and helping out scientists, which is great. So yes, sometimes the science ends. Are there space projects? So we will be focusing on space on April 22nd, which is Earth Day. But there are tons of space ones. All you have to do is go to the drop down that has to do with the topic and hit space or environment, or you can actually go through NASA's website because they actually have some links that direct you to these projects because NASA is all about Citizen Science Month also. Can we find projects not on our computer? Yes, so they don't have to be online things. I actually saw one where you go outside and measure how much snow's out there, and then you can like enter in the information on their website, or you can do a little experiment with putting out different amounts of food on a plate and seeing if it attracts ants. So what do your ants in your neighborhood like to eat? Where in other areas, they might have a different like subspecies of ant that might prefer different sorts of food. So it still needs to be entered, I believe, online. There are also projects that you can do in person in large groups, but they're not really ones we want to focus on right now. So there are nationwide projects that are yearly, that are really known, like the bird count for Christmas and things like that. But those sorts of things sometimes have groups of people and everybody gathering around. So these are the best ones right now to keep everybody safe, but still obviously curious and interested in science. We did want to thank you for coming to our first webinar. I want to remind everybody that we do have one coming up this Friday. So every Friday this month, we're going to be focusing on our Junior Naturalists webinars. This Friday, we're going to be focusing on budding botanist. So it's going to be me again, and I'm going to teach you how you can identify trees in your neighborhood just by looking at the characteristics of the leaves and the ways that they sit on the twigs. But any of the other ones are about animals or nature or space. So if you're interested and you want to join us again, you can go to our Facebook page for more information, our Instagram, our website, all sorts of things. So look out for those notifications. Since we are...
Marquita, could you just say, because we're going to air this recording on our sites, could you say the date of the budding botanist?
Oh yeah, so the budding botanist, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to, Miss Sloan, do you remember the exact date? It's the 10th.
I believe it's April 10th.
April 10th at 10:30. So Friday, April 10th. So like I said, every Friday at 10:30, we'll be doing a junior naturalist, but this one is on the 10th, and we'll keep sending reminders and stuff. We'll send you a link for that as well, so you can join easily through the Zoom. So if there aren't any other questions, I am going to stop the recording.